This project starts as kind of an overall vision of the 95 corridor. We talked about it from the 3rd Street underpass all the way up to 10th Street. And the idea was that they would come up with an overarching design idea, what we call a partie or big idea diagram, of how you could stitch these two sides of 95 back together. As we know, the 95 cut a huge swath through a really vibrant community back in the 50s. And some of the work that United Neighbors and Sarah and everyone has been working on has thought about how to bring these communities back together. So the students had to think of a concept that would bring both sides of the city back together, look at multimodal transportation, provide accessibility for a diverse series of user groups, including children, seniors, business people, residents, you name it. Think about where you could have places of gathering. Consider maintenance, because that's a huge thing. Before I became a professor at UD, I worked in Philadelphia at the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society, and you can plant as many trees as you want, but if no one's there to maintain them, it doesn't make a very great impression or a good project for the long haul. So maintenance considerations are always important. And then think about stormwater management, creative placemaking, and perhaps urban forestry. So that was project 1, and they presented that shortly after we were sent home as a result of COVID-19. After this, they got some great feedback from the community and others, and they selected 3 of those 7 sites to focus in on in more detail. And so this was what they did for their, what we call their 3-quarter project. Finally, they picked one of those 3 sites and zoomed in with even more granular detail, and that's what they're going to be sharing with you today. But they're also going to tell you a little bit about their overall idea and where that came from. In the Urban Design Studio, they also do a lot of other things. They do models like AutoCAD models and 3D models, and usually we do physical models, but that wasn't possible this semester. They read a great series of essays called the Just City essays that come out of the City University of New York New School, which are all about how to create equitable and just places in our cities. They write reflections and they do mapping. They also look at case studies. So they looked at how other highways were dealing with this how other cities were dealing with these aging highways and this aging infrastructure. And so in groups, they looked at New Haven, Connecticut, Denver, Colorado, Boston, Massachusetts with the Rose Kennedy Greenway, and the Alaskan Way Viaduct. And they all took a look at different ways and different methods of approaching these type of situations. They also did a good deal of site analysis. This was also done in groups. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but I just wanted everyone to see that they did take time to go out to the site, look at the overall location, what were some of the concerns about the 95 swath that was cut, what are the utilities, which direction is the traffic going, what is the programming that's happening on site now, where does wind come from, etc. Sun and shade, constraints and opportunities, and flora and fauna. So they did take a good look at all of those things. But this project really would not be successful without the feedback and input provided by this group of people listed on this slide, including Sarah, Councilman Turner, Ms. Karen Turner, CJ, Ms. Irene, Ms. Shirley, Kevin Malloy, Matt Harris, and Paul Moser. And I know I'm forgetting others, but this class, there's 3 main learning objectives. One is clarity of concept. How well can you share your idea? 2 is visual representation, like how can people look at your graphics and understand what you're trying to say? And 3 is community engagement, because my belief is that you can't be a good designer without designing with the people that you're creating spaces for. And so that's the most important part of this, and especially given the circumstances being online and having to do this all virtually, this has been a really phenomenal opportunity for these students. So thank you so much. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our first presenter, who is Olivia Boone, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and she's going to share hers. So thanks again.
Anna, is there going to be, as far as the schedule, you said each student will present for 5 minutes, and then is there opportunity for any questions?
That's a great question. Yes, I think that we should say 5 minutes for presentation and then 5 minutes for questions, and cut it off at 5 minutes. And then if there's additional general questions at the end, we can open it back up.
So if folks can make sure to use your chat function, I'll make sure to try to see if, there's a raising hand, function, and I'll try to call on folks. If you don't get called on, please ask your question, just because we're going to try to get through all of the presentation. So please utilize that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, hello all. My name is Olivia Boone. I'm a junior in the landscape architecture program at UD. I'm just going to set up my screen real quick here. Okay, so I may have to stop sharing for a sec. It's kind of a wonky system we have here to set this up. Okay, can everybody see that all right? Yep, okay, great. So as I said before, I'm a junior in the landscape architecture program. I've had the pleasure of working with the I95 corridor this semester. And I've really enjoyed working with the community members. Oh, I'm just getting a message that my screen is still not working. Give me a second. I know there's a trick to this. Okay. Got full screen? Okay, great. All right. So it's been a real delight taking a look at the I-95 corridor and examining ways to provide a sense of connectivity and reunification for the West Side. I included these images here on this first slide to begin taking a look at how the I-95 construction deeply impacted not only the social fabric of the West Side, but it's also a very striking visual image of how it cuts through the community. I included these bottom photos as kind of a what my impressions of the site were and how those kinds of dynamics, those visual dynamics, were important when I was designing the site. To share a bit of my whole overarching concept for this design, I began by taking a look at what was existing at the site and what was successful there. And I found that the United Neighbors mural on the 7th Street Bridge was such a successful and positive impact, and it was mostly done through the use of color. And I felt that this was an important theme to carry along the corridor when I was considering the site as a whole, and kind of incorporated this into the concept of threads of color weaving the corridor back together. And as you can see on the left, this is a diagrammatic example of that. And on the right is an overall site concept with 3 different nodes that I considered for designing. And I eventually settled on the Adams Street courts below 3rd Street at the very bottom of that site to further program out. This is a look at the existing conditions on the site. It's a bird's eye view of what's existing at the Adams Street courts and how the overpass of Interstate 95 really creates this compelling visual space there, and how it runs right over the basketball courts. So I found that this was very important when choosing a site to settle on, because I felt this could be a very impactful space for people to use in the community. So this is another example of how impactful that the vertical view is of the overpass going over the courts. And another important aspect I found of this was the use of the courts as a gathering space by West Side Grows. And I thought that this would be a really excellent opportunity to run along that theme for a gathering space in the Adams Street Courts area. Below that are 2 precedent images from the Miami Underline and then the Toronto Underpass Park that were successful existing places, community gathering places and parks that are below a railway line and a underpass. this is my plan view of an overall design of the Adams Street courts. So what I really wanted to run along here with was that idea of a paved space, and oops, give me 1 second, sorry, and how, oops, pardon me, and how that could be a opportunity to introduce color on the space, as well as in resurfaced basketball courts, continuing that theme of color to draw people into the space, make it a real opportunity for connectivity and community. Some other programmatic elements to point out are sculptures that would be a sort of artistic component, but also be a placemaking kind of opportunity, so that when people drive by the site, they recognize it as kind of like the center of the west side. And on the northwest section of the site, I included a rain garden that would be a opportunity to mitigate some of the drainage issues along the top of the site there. There's some problems, there's some like bare patches of dirt, and the rainwater doesn't percolate does not percolate correctly there. So this was an opportunity to further delve into how to fix those issues. So just continuing along here. Oops, sorry, did I do that? The arrows. Okay, just gonna ignore these arrows, hopefully. Maybe it's just on my screen, but these are just sections giving you a view of the courts and kind of the vertical interplay between what the park would look like within the context of the existing conditions, and how it would look like with North Jackson Street on the left side and Adams Street on the right side. Here's what the gathering space would look like, the paved gathering space. It would be a really excellent opportunity for all sorts of events like movie nights, outdoor movie nights, from community meetings. And here's what the rain garden in the northwest corner of the site would look like. It would be a kind of terrace pathway running along it, and would be another opportunity to introduce color along the entrance walls and a retaining wall to hold back the soil and vegetation. This is that site in greater detail, a kind of planting plan for the rain garden. And on the bottom, you can see that there's another planting plan for the grassy buffers that would run along the perimeter of the site to make the space feel more demarcated and like it's more of a formal space. This is just a deeper look at the rain garden and how that topography change would feel moving along the space on the bottom there. You can see how it's a gradual slope downwards from the entrance of the Adams Street courts along 3rd Street towards 2nd Street. And another look at just how the topography change would be accomplished with soil fill on the top left, and again, the planting plan on the top right. So yeah, that is all I have to share today. I'm looking forward to hearing your feedback. It's been a real pleasure working on this site, and I thank you all again for coming out today and listening to what we have to say.
Clap. Great jobs. And sorry about the annotation thing. I don't know if, I think that if you're sharing your screen, that might have been something that, I don't know how to annotate otherwise, but I apologize, you know, that's, anyway, it was fine. We could totally see your presentation without the arrows. Great job.
Great. Okay.
I'm looking to see if anyone has raised a hand. I don't necessarily see one. Anyone have questions for Olivia or feedback?
Sarah, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. That's Councilman Turner. Yeah.
Yes. Olivia, what did you find interesting when you did 3rd Street? One of the things that we found interesting as residents of that area is the sloping. What did you find interesting on your research, or how to accommodate the sloping from 3rd to 2nd What did you find interesting in that research?
Yeah, so it seems that a lot of the slope along that side is concentrated in the northwest corner where I installed that rain garden. And I really did enjoy that elevation change. I thought it was a really interesting part of the site, so I didn't want to lose that. And so that's one of the reasons why I thought that a terraced opportunity alongside a retaining wall so that you can still see how the slope is changing as you walk down along that terrace because the wall is short enough, but still be able to see the sidewalk on the other side and how that's slightly elevated, and provides kind of cool dynamic between the inside and the outside space.
Yeah, thank you for that. That retaining wall is, I love that view.
Thank you.
Hey, Olivia,
Go ahead, Kevin.
this is Kevin Kelly. I think you did an excellent job. I oversee the Parks Department. I've lived under them courts my whole life playing basketball, so I'm very familiar with it, and I have some conceptual ideas. I like the green space that's in there, and I agree with Councilmember Turner about the rain. You have to address the rain. The one thing is, I'm not wed that we need 4 basketball courts. I don't think we need that many. I think we need to bring some color to the courts and color to the pillars as well. I think you have some of that. The green space looks good. One idea that we don't have within this park that we could possibly look at is there's no recreation for kids. So it's a playground. There's no swings or there's no something for kids to play on. The one challenge is you have the 2 of the most streets where people travel the fastest in the city of Wilmington, going Jackson Street southbound and going northbound on Adams Street. You know, you're in there. The one question I had for you, did you ever give any thought to just closing 3rd Street off and making it a little bit more of to integrate both areas of that under 95?
That's a great question. That's something I didn't consider because looking at the site when I was examining the site in its existing conditions, I found that a lot of people were parking and dropping people off along 3rd Street. And that was kind of providing like this informal entrance to the space. And I liked that idea of people seemed to really like, that works for people. And I wanted to keep that element as an informal entrance to the space.
Awesome. And go ahead, Kevin, did you have something else?
Well, I just wanted to, like I said, the final one is, Del Dot's proposal, they're going to close I-95 for 2 years under there. So for 2 years, you won't be able to get under there. And one of the proposals they want to do is put 2 temporary basketball courts next to the existing courts. So they would have to come out at some point. But hey, I like the design. I think it's looks much better than what we got right now.
Yeah. I wanted to draw your attention, Olivia. I'm sure you can see them. We've gotten a lot of great comments in the chat. Folks have mentioned the color, like Kevin Kelly mentioned. Folks talked about the style of your presentation, how it was professional. And so I just want to make sure you saw that. And for time purposes, I think we might want to move on to the next one, right, Anna? Okay, and so Olivia, if you unshare your screen, I realized that, while I may know, many of us might know each other on this call, I do think it's important for the students to make sure you know a little bit about some of the attendees that are on the call, because you have some outstanding individuals and leadership from the city of Wilmington and from the state that have joined us to look to kind of give feedback on your presentations. So I'm sure I don't know that I should go through all 50 of you, but I just, you heard from Kevin Kelly, who is the director of Parks and Recreation for the city of Wilmington and has been a leader in the city for a long time. So he has great knowledge of the corridor and those basketball courts, as he mentioned. We have Senator Lockman, who is our state senator for the 3rd District, which covers this area. We have State Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker, who has been active on the comments, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned her. We have Council President Hanifa Shabazz. She's waving. We have a couple of we have Councilman Bash Turner, who many of the students have met because we got a chance to tour. We have Councilwoman Rashima Dixon. We have Councilman Bud Friel. And am I missing any other council people? I don't mean to. But in addition to those dignitaries, we have a lot of other leadership. I see Matt Harris from the City of Wilmington Planning Department. I see some members of DELDOT are on the call who are working actively right now very hard to renovate 95. And, you know, I think getting some of their thoughts on your proposals will be very key. We have local artists on the call, local members of our West Side Grows Together Steering Committee, United Neighbors, and Better Block efforts. So, so many different leaders are represented here. And I just wanted to make sure I gave them all some acknowledgement because they're all here to listen to your great presentation. So yeah, did I forget anyone or anyone want to say hi that I've kind of glossed over? But thank you all again for joining. Will Map goes on the call too, and they're our regional planning organization. So they're very helpful in looking at connectivity and transportation. So that's that. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you all so much for being here. It's really wonderful. Up next, we have Peter Regas. Peter, will you share your screen?
Can everyone see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. So hello everyone, my name is Peter and I'm presenting my work for the 95 redesign. For the project, I chose to focus on the area where 95 intercepts the highway and divides it in this area right here. Upon visiting the site and for my site analysis, I noticed there was two themes of traffic and water flow all around the area. For my first diagram, it shows the traffic density with red representing high density, medium as orange as medium, and yellow as low density. Over here, we have noted the direction of travel for traffic. And this is when you overlap them, they create this graphic over here. Down here, we have the water flow with arrows showing which way water flows. In this one, we have blue representing high runoff areas. And when you combine them, they create this graphic over here. And my final diagram shows the pedestrian versus car graphic. We have orange as car methods of travel, and I have yellow here as a proposed pedestrian bridge. And from these diagrams, I have these areas of interest, and we combined the two graphics that give you this diagram over here. Another theme in the city was the comparison of built versus unbuilt environment. In this diagram, we have green representing green and vegetated spaces, and dark gray and light gray as buildings and roads. Gathering the information from all my diagrams, I constructed an overall map with areas of interest on the right. And I see here we have Area 1 as 7th Street Bridge, Area 2 as the 95 South off-ramp, and Area 3 as the Adams Street Courts. I chose to continue with the 7th Street Bridge for my design purposes. These are policy maps showing estimated percent of workers who commute by walking on the left and biking on the right. We see here on the left that there's about 5% or more people that walk to work over here as compared to just 3.5 or more percent of commuters by biking on the right. For my existing conditions plans, I show, you can see here the tree cover, traffic lights, and direction of travel. And for my existing conditions sections, we see the relationship of the bridge to the overall surroundings. There's a similar project going on the I-76 Vine Street Bridge, which shows the possibility of my idea being the possibility of transforming a bridge to a pedestrian bridge elsewhere. And now transforming to my ideas, we have the 7th Street Bridge converted into a pedestrian-only bridge with a paved bricks walkway in the middle with areas to the north and south for recreation. This is a section of my proposed conditions or proposed idea. We have here just the relationship of people to the bridge and how you might feel in the space. And this is a rendered perspective of the bridge, of what it could look like going through with the idea and how it gives you a sense of place on the bridge. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Does anyone, and if anyone needs to see a slide again too, you can always ask a student to go back to a different slide. Does anyone have any, I see a couple comments coming in from Senator Lockman. Does anyone have a question for Peter? Or comment? I know that this is a topic, you know, as Anna mentioned at the beginning, the idea of a cap or bridge, land bridge across highways is one that is being visited throughout the country. And I recall some members of the city of Wilmington, you know, some of the staff maybe on this call mentioning, you know, the idea of looking at one of our bridges going across 95 and what it would be like if we closed it down to car traffic. So this is a really great visual representation of that and great, I think, research that supports it. Does anyone have any other questions? Or it says, there's a question here in the chat. It says, what impact would this have on traffic? Do you have any idea, Peter?
Yes, if I go back to one of my diagrams, I believe here it shows, this is a 7th Street Bridge as showed as low traffic density. So that's one of the main reasons why I chose this bridge, because it had relatively low traffic, and both 7th Street and 8th Street Bridge have the same direction of traffic on the right. So if we eliminated or converted 7th Street to pedestrian only, it should have a minimal impact on traffic, on car traffic over the bridge.
Excellent.
I have one more. Peter, do you have any, within your diagram, which I really like, do you have any place for people to gather within the pedestrian? Is it more just like a much more laid back type of design?
My intentions for the design was to have like small areas for relaxation over here in these two areas, more so like maybe 8 to 10 people, but still having this path through the space to allow people that want to walk through and bridge the division that 95 created between two halves of the city.
And Peter, when you were talking about the density, the traffic density, where did you get that data?
On site, I noticed, I used Policy Map, and on site, I noticed
The traffic.
the traffic, yeah.
Okay. Is that, I think that's consistent if any of our WillMapGo or Del.Dot folks are on the call, but I think that is what they have found before.
Sarah, if I may, Peter, first and foremost, great job. And I'm glad you picked the 7th Street Bridge. I don't know if everyone knows the history of the 7th Street Bridge, but 7th Street used to go in the opposite direction. And that bridge, from when I was younger, a lot of traffic didn't go over that bridge because of the opposite direction. Probably in the last 15 years, it was changed and got a little more traffic, but that's probably the least used bridge that we have in that corridor.
Okay, that's great.
Thank
A
you.
great point. And I know there's been a lot of comments. So again, I want to make sure, Peter, you look at the comments because there's some really great ones for you. There's one more question I've been made aware of that I'll call on, and then we'll move on to the next one. Jared from DART, did you want to say something?
Yep, so I didn't really have a question. It was more of a congratulations to try to think about how to incorporate pedestrians, like really just give them a space that they can move about instead of really worrying about traffic too much, because car traffic always finds a way. It's like life from Jurassic Park. It's just going to find a way to live. Something to really think about, though, is how it's going to be used and how people are walking about the space. I definitely encourage you to read Jane Jacobs' book. What is it? Forgetting the title now. I'm sorry. The Death and Life of Cities. It really helps explain how a use of a place helps keep it safe by keeping eyes on the street and finding ways to find uses around your pedestrian-only area will only enhance that pedestrian bridge.
Thank you.
So,
Great. And maybe as we transition to the next one, there was one more question. Maybe Peter, you want to answer as we're transitioning about security, thinking about security along the bridge. Garrison asked a question about like the walls on the bridge and how they decrease visibility, but have you thought about security kind of on the bridge?
I'm a little confused about visibility. Do you mean from 95 visibility or from turning on to 10th Street? I know I added traffic poles here to prevent any cars from entering the space.
Gotcha.
As far as safety goes, I'm not sure where I can how
Gotcha.
it decrease visibility effects.
Yeah, no, I think that might have answered it, but Garrison, did you want to add anything?
Hi, yeah, I did. Mainly, I love the design. I love the rendering that you made up. It looks absolutely beautiful. What I was thinking about, like, I'm comparing this to a place like 3rd Street, where it's like one, I don't want to say alleyway, but basically because you only have, you can only see into the area from one side to the other. I'm just wondering if you considered like a place for security cameras or, I don't know, some way to increase visibility at nighttime or even like during the daytime or when no one else is around. If that makes sense.
As far as security cameras, I didn't specifically think of that, but I assume you could add some sort of camera to the new traffic lights I proposed to implement in the design. As you can see kind of here, they're kind of blocked by trees, but I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you very much again, Peter. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, up next we have Morgan.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you see my screen now? All right, my name is Morgan, and my concept for this project is how plant habits can influence the habitual movement of people throughout the space. So these pictures that I included are some diagrams that I made to help me consider where I wanted to place certain elements on the site and how it can connect back to my concept. So to start off, I wanted to look at Olivia's site analysis from earlier in the semester. The sun and shade analysis helped me find areas of opportunity for planting and to see which areas had the most sunlight. And in this, I noticed that most of the buildings and the highways provided a lot of shade. Sorry. So my concept definition. So these are some of the plant habits that I chose to concentrate on. And first, upright, which are trees or linear looking perennials. And I chose these to help frame the space, also to provide some noise control and to help guide people's movement in the space. And then we have mounding plants, which are like round shaped shrubs or perennials, which are used for erosion control and guidance. And then I have climbing plants, which encourage people to just enjoy the space, and it also recognizes the existing features of the site and how we can make them more pleasing. And then last, I have creeping plants, which gives off the feeling of movement on the site and connects my concept to the materials that I used. And so then some plants I used to help you just visualize the project. So I have little blue stem, for example, as upright. I have hydrangea as mounding, and some climbing plants, and also creeping. And so my area of focus is between 3rd and 4th Street at the existing Adams Street court, and I highlighted it in pink right there. So some existing conditions of the site, we have the basketball courts, we have steeper slopes around this side over here, and a lot of erosion and some not so great concrete pathways, and there's concrete in the middle, and then we have grass around the sides of 95. So my area of focus designed, I kept an existing basketball court. I added some raised planters right over here. And I have some amphitheater seating, which is pretty low in the ground with surrounding like creeping plants, which I showed in my diagram. And seats too, and these seats like go around the contour lines. And I've also added some planting beds over here for noise control, erosion control, and to help the shape of movement of people throughout the space. And the planting beds are also influenced by the contour lines. And so I have my first section right here that I'll get into. This is number 2, and then number 3. So my first section cuts through the existing basketball courts, and you can see that I have the rain garden off to the side, which reduces erosion, and what the amphitheater seats might look like, so you can get a view of the basketball courts and how 95 interacts with this space. And then my second section has the amphitheater seats, and then the example of like noise control off to the right, and then some mounding plants for path guidance, and then some people enjoying like a gathering. So I just added like some musicians in the center for an example of what people could use this space as. And then lastly, I have my section with the walls of 95 on the ground. And this just shows that I wanted to add my climbing plants on this feature, just to help people enjoy the space, and then also have the interaction of gathering people with the musicians and how it all can come together. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We can now take some questions.
I'll go ahead.
Yes.
I like your idea of trying to get some seating in that area, you know, for people can watch the activities. And I like your ideas too with the plants. I think we need some more plants there. You know, one of the challenges with that site too, it is so shaded, you know what I mean? Everything's in the shade because the sun sets to the west, and a large majority of the park is always in the shade per se around it. I like it. Now, do you propose the columns you have there, are they painted columns, or is that plants that we're going to have grow on the columns?
These are plants.
They would grow on the columns.
Yeah.
Cool. I like that. I like that. It's a little different to be able to do, but I think it makes it look a little more natural I mean, listen, it's a concrete and asphalt kind of site, but throwing something on there, that's not bad at all. You see what happens, and getting some more people to be able to use it was helpful as well. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no more comments, we'll go ahead on to the next presenter, who is Hunter Fleming.
Hi, everybody. Give me a sec to share my screen here. Okay, my name is Hunter Fleming, and I'm here today to share with you my vision for the I95 corridor. Our project started out with a brief site analysis of the site and the areas from 3rd to 10th Street. We had looked at certain opportunities and constraints, the different elements of the area, different materials that were used throughout the site, some of the opportunities that we had. It's a very engaging community. We also have poor lighting was sort of an opportunity where we could highlight some different things as well as walkways. The existing conditions, I chose to focus on the strip of Adams Street from Carpenter up to 6th Street. We were told on our site analysis walk that this was an area that was sort of underutilized and that many people were looking to add sort of a certain element there to sort of engage the community more. The area is mowed twice a year. There's lots of trees, and it was sort of an area that I chose to focus on. My overall concepts for the site, I chose to look at a natural and sequential view to the area. Natural, I defined as being a free-flowing, undefined site that's relatively undisturbed, and then sequence for more of a scaled and defined space with repetition and certain shapes that are involved with them. And looking for some different ideas for how I could incorporate this into the side next to 5th Street, I found, as you look to the top right picture, that's a site that I would define as a natural space. It has a natural flowing path through it. And aside from the plants that follow along the right side of the path, they seem to be naturally placed in no specific order. Whereas if you look to the bottom left, it's very repetitive with the flower boxes that come down towards the walkways, and it sort of alternates between a mulch and grass sections. For my proposed plan, I proposed my idea to highlight the more natural flow to the area, to the site that has had a sequence that has been placed upon it in terms of the city itself, the streets, the blocks, the highway now running through it. And I felt that the natural side was sort of underutilized. So my proposal was a meadow along the side of the bank. If you guys can see my mouse here. Towards the bottom of this section here, or this plan view, this is roughly a 28-foot hill that comes up to this top sound wall. And it sort of slopes off, and it's only about a 6 feet or so incline here. I had originally proposed a full meadow to be stretching the length of this area, but I wanted to incorporate sort of a natural movement that could bring you through the site and to sort of bring you up to the top of that hill, or to give you the full experience of the site. For section A, this is more of an elevation that shows from Adams Street up to the top of the hill, with the mural being on the sound wall itself. The United Anitos project was a very big hit, and I felt that that was an element that could be definitely used more throughout the site. And I felt that it would also be something that would grab your attention instead of, as you move down the sidewalk, it might want to bring you up to more through the site and up to the top of the hill there. I'd also proposed planters to be in between the roadway and the sidewalk itself, as there's roughly a 3-foot area there. And there's no shoulders there. I dropped in a quick planning detail for my proposed planter beds, just something to have for detail and to give the different specifications for how the plants and the shrubs should be planted. And then lastly, I have a poster to sort of bring all my ideas into one picture, so it'd be more clear. That is my project. Thank you guys for listening. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Daniel. Let's see, anyone have any? I really like that you focused on this section of just to make sure folks are oriented, right? It's on Adams Street, correct? Or
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. And it's not it's something we hadn't really looked at in our United Neighbors work. Let's see, we have some comments coming in. Is the area currently grass or trees or mixture along that area? Do you know if they are native or non-native?
There are cherry blossoms located along it, as well as switchgrass. It's sort of a mixture of both. They're sporadically placed throughout that piece of strip there. I felt that since it's an area that is usually just mowed twice a year, that would be a good thing for a meadow, as they require sort of the same mowing for maintenance.
And that question came from Maria, who works for the Nature Conservancy. So you have a lot of great resources here on the call. So thank you for that question, Maria. Any other questions for Daniel? So one person said, that they like that you selected that area because it's underutilized, but also in full view of the neighborhood. So that's very key. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. I think we've hit at our peak 56 attendees on this call, everybody. That's quite a attendance.
So up next we have Y, also known as Hao Shen Yu.
Can everyone see my screen?
Can you make it full screen, Y?
Yeah, sure. All right. So hi everyone, my name is Y, and I'm a junior in landscape architecture program. And this semester, we have spent a lot of time in Wilmington, especially for 95 corridor project. So now I'm going to present my work to all of you. So firstly, I want to show you my Northeast visioning project because there are some elements related to my 95 corridor final design. And basically what I have here is a plan, which is this one around 16th Bridge area. And I cut a section along Pine Street. And here is a section. What I did is to utilize the slope or elevation change along the Pine Street to make a deck platform structure, so that I have my keywords here, which is open versus close. Obviously, you can step onto the deck platform to enjoy the view, and you will have open feeling there. But when you are below the deck, you got actually closed feeling. And here is just a perspective drawing for this part of design, the deck over here. And then I'm going to move on to 95 corridor project. At the beginning, we did this site analysis. Here is one of the posters we did in my group, which is about site use and wind. We have many other posters about other aspects as well. And next, this slide shows my overall stitching concept. Basically, I have designs for 3 different locations according to my personal interests. The first one is the amphitheater area around 3rd Street, which is designed as a green open space. And second one is I will call it a cliff park because it's a design utilize elevation change, which is the same concept I mentioned in Northeast Visioning. And the third one is just kind of a big scaled new pathway or gather space design. And here are my sections, and one for amphitheater area, which is cut here. You can see where my mouse is. So here is a section, and the second section is for my cliff park, which is cut here. There are more showing the basic concept, so the scale is not that accurate, and I have this perspective drawing for my amphitheater area. And next slide, since I have got my concept already, and as you can see what I diagram here on the left side for my amphitheater, cliff park, and the new pathway design. And so I start to diagram the whole site area, trying to find some locations to make my final design. Firstly, I have this topography diagram, which is using different colors to show where the slope is and where the flat area is. And the middle one diagrams shows the locations that has rock on site. And the third diagram shows the locations that have a great view, which means people can actually look through the 95 or the whole site. And finally, if I overlay the three diagrams together, I got these three locations to add design on. And I'm not just, it's not just depends on my personal interest anymore, but I have some really good reasons to pick those areas, which is containing elevation change, rock bed, and good views. So here is my design for area 1, which is designed as a green open space and flat space. And I have this amphitheater area over here with the same concept. And above is the, which is over here, is a rock theme park with some rock art piece in it. And here is a perspective of that rock theme park. And for area 2 and area 3, I started to use the cliff park concept, which is making design by utilizing the interesting elevation change on site. So people get access onto the slope area. And there will be art pieces played there as well for people to enjoy. And of course, the driver or passengers can also enjoy the art piece. Even the whole structure can be a great view for them. And the difference between area 2 and area 3, this one is area 2 and area 3 will look like this. And the difference between these two is that area 2 is more public space, feeling more large, like for large groups of people together. And instead, area 3, I have this special design seats or steps for a small group of people together just to fit different scenarios. And again, this is area 2. So the design here is for a large group of people. And for area 3, there are many individual special designed seats for a small group of people together. And in the end, I pick area 2 to make my final design. I redraw and redesign some details to make everything very accurate and to solve some problems I received from the feedback I have. The main problem I need to solve is safety issues. So here people don't have access to the bottom part of the slope. Instead, trees, art piece, and buffer will be placed on the bottom side of the slope to provide interest and protection. And I also apply some cut and fill to make more flat space on the slope for people to not only sit, but also work and having some other activities. And I have this perspective drawing of the design so you can have a better feeling of the design. And this is a general section cut through this line, and this one is another section cut along the North Jackson Street, just to provide more vision for you. And in conclusion, I think this kind of design provide much space for people to gather and can create an interesting connection between both sides of highway, and even a connection between the community and people who just drive by on the 95 highway. And the rock theme is related to the site history, and I hope people living there would enjoy those rock theme design and art pieces. So thank you so much for listening, and let me know if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. There's already some great comments about how innovative this idea is. I think there should definitely be some questions. It's very out of the box thinking about the space. Would love to hear from DelDOT now. But anyone have questions or reactions? So just to recap something, we got a chance to see Y's presentation originally, and his final design poster that you all see, he's addressing the major concern that we had, which was that folks would be too close to the highway with the slope and the seating. And so it may have been, there was a lot of information, but you can see in this final version that he has a barrier at the bottom of the hill to kind of separate folks from the highway. So I just wanted to make sure folks could catch that. Any other feedback or questions for why? All right. Cool. Yeah, I think you kind of shocked some people into silence with the kind of different thought about the space. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Y. Up next, we have Brandon Moore.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Brandon, and I'm going to be going over my project for the redesign of I-95 corridor.
I believe someone may be unmuted. Just make sure everyone's muted, please. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to be going over first a brief introduction to my Northeast Visioning project, and then we'll go further into my I-95 corridor. So this is my Northeast Visioning project. I was looking at ways how I can manage some stormwater using the impervious surfaces like the streets and the rooftops. So I have a rain garden managing the runoff from the streets, and we have a small rain garden with downspouts managing the runoff from the rooftops implemented. Then we go into our I-95 corridor project, where I still wanted to look more into water flow, more specifically the gather and release of water in the site. My design intent is to connect the existing gathering spaces at either end of the corridor by highlighting water flow in a dynamic and sustainable way. We can see that Delaware Greenways has plans and ideas of implementing trails near our site. This is the blue with the yellow dotted line. They're just trail ideas. You can get them on the internet. I tried to reach the community to see what people wanted, and Delaware Greenways seem to provide that. So these are some of the existing conditions that I was looking at. The 4th Street underpass and the areas between 6th and 8th Street down below. So the first area that I look at is up here, the north end in between 9th and 10th. It's a land structure. And the purpose of this land structure will be following suit with the general flow of water throughout the whole site, looking at topography, elevation change, and where the water is going to end up once it hits the ground. This is more of the land bridge. The function of this bridge is to navigate water south into our site for more use. And this is a retaining wall in between 6th and 8th Street. There is a path on the parallel side that we can walk through, and we can look over and see this retaining wall. These retaining wall, there's a stormwater management rain garden next to the highway. So up here, as the cars drive by, they'll be greeted by this small rain garden with the wall, and then there's additional space up here. So we get further south into the site, I started looking into where I wanted to implement the connectivity. I wanted to bring different types of users to make them know that they're in the city of Wilmington. So when I visited the site, we took exit 6, and I was greeted by in my existing condition, what was here, it was pretty bare. I felt it was a good opportunity to put a welcome sign. Then this welcome sign wraps down and into a water fountain to additionally highlight the use of water flow that they're using. These are just some more images of potential water fountains in the form of a raindrop. I was specifically looking at topography lines and where to implement corresponding to these topographical changes, right? And this is just a little overview of my project. I hope you enjoyed listening to me. I appreciate you guys giving your time today. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thank you.
I believe there was someone who had raised their hand. It was Ray Johns. Do you have a question? Or maybe it was an accident, but Ray? Okay. Anyone else have questions, reactions, feedback for our presenter, for Brandon?
I had one. Brandon, can you go back to the slide that had like the retaining wall that you had incorporated? Yeah, that one. So is that a pedestrian path on the other side of the retaining wall?
What was that?
Is that, so the retaining wall that you had there, I guess that would be on probably the Adams Street side. Is that retaining wall, is that a path that's above it or just a retaining wall itself?
So this is there's 2 retaining walls. The path is on the east side near Adams Street.
Right, on that slide that you had there on the, come down and over to the left. So that would be a path right on that side. And how would you get into the path? Where would be the access point? At 4th Street?
Yes. And so any sections from the neighborhood, you can just enter the street. On the site, there's no sidewalks actually right there. So
Right.
It's a perfect spot to put a trail.
Yeah, I like that idea of that retaining wall. It kind of makes it look a little more, normal, whatever that word may be. But I like the idea of a trail or something that people could walk along and get from one end to the other, and view 95 and be part of all that green space you have. Looks good.
Thank you.
Yep, and there's some great comments in the chat about the use of the fountain. I think that's also a unique feature. And how it mitigates sound, especially since we know the highway is very noisy. Any other comments, reactions, or questions? All right. If none, then we will move on to the next presenter. Thank you so much, Brandon.
Thank you. You guys.
Okay, up next we have Jessica.
Hi everyone, I'm Jess Toy. I'm working on sharing my screen.
While you're doing that, Anna, I am recording this session. Are we able to share some of these slides with folks after the presentations are done as well?
Yes, I think that'd be absolutely great. The students have created combined PDF files, so we can make them available either, they're probably pretty large files, so either in a Google Drive or if you have another Dropbox or something you want me to add them to, I'm happy to.
Okay, great. And just for a time check, how many more presentations do we have?
So
3.
we're good.
Okay, thank you.
Can everyone see this in full screen? So hello everyone, my name is Jess Toy. I'm a junior in the landscape architecture program at UD, and I'm going to talk to you guys about my proposal for Skyline Park. To start off, I have my partie diagram with an aerial map of Wilmington. And my initial thoughts is Wilmington, just like a lot of cities in America, have a very blocky and linear structure to them. And my first inspiration was to create more curvilinear pathways and kind of nodes of gathering spaces along the corridor that like kind of resemble more relaxing senses of space and create engaging and sensory pathways. One sec. So for my site analysis, I looked at the flora and fauna of the site, and what really struck out to me was there was a lot of biodiversity on the site, but there are also non-native invasive plants in some areas like bamboo, and there are these fences that kind of have plants growing all over them. So it was just interesting to see this, and I know that in some areas of the site there has been vegetation planted to promote biodiversity. So my area of focus, I decided to work on the area between 8th Street and 9th Street. This vegetative site you can see here is pretty much full of trees and dense vegetation, and I have a picture of what it looks like now. And I wanted to focus on ecology and community and sensory details in my site because I wanted to make this space for the residents, to bring back the space that was taken away from when the highway was constructed and the fences were put up. So I have existing conditions of this area between 8th and 9th Street. There's very dense vegetation, but also a lot of biodiversity. It has a unique elevation where the site is very sloped. And you can see the high elevation here and the low elevation where I95 is, higher up where Jackson Street is. And I have another section that shows kind of just the denseness of the trees and how it kind of blocks views, which I really wanted to show in my design, and creates this off-limit access of the area. My design I titled Skyline Park, and it is a gathering space created that connects to the sidewalks of North Jackson Street. In my enlargement plan, you can see there's an elevated pathway that works around in a curvilinear fashion, also with a green space situated inside. In my section, I have kind of the elevation that exists on the site, but also it levels out, and this is a green space area, which is pretty open. It just serves as like an engaging space for kind of anybody who wants to use it. And I have steps leading up to the elevated pathway, but it also connects at the sidewalks. And this space can be used as kind of like an amphitheater space from all around, but it also creates these panoramic views of the city that you cannot see right now because of the dense vegetation. And I also have stormwater planters that sit on the stairs in some places, kind of mitigate some of the water that's flowing onto this infrastructure. And my Part T diagram up here is just me trying to work out how I could take this area that's very linear and create a space out of it that is kind of surrounded by infrastructure on both sides. So my section at the top shows what it would look like looking out towards the highway. You would be able to see the city skyline. You could see the elevated pathway wraps around, and also there's the green space underneath. And I would use a protective barrier that kind of resembles a decking railing, but it would be protective. And on the other side, this is facing towards North Jackson Street, where the houses are, is kind of that sloped green space that I intended with sitting structures placed into the sides. So this could be another spot for like amphitheater type sense of place. And lastly, I have a rendering of what this would look like and how it connects and creates this view. And being on this elevated pathway would be a very sensory experience because you would see all the vegetation below. I wanted to keep the biodiversity of the area, but create a node of the site that would be for people to bring back the space that was limited or off access when this highway was designed. And the skyline would be a great, beautiful sensory experience, as well as hearing the noises from the highway below. So yes, my main goal was to bring back this, to give back the space to the community and really just allow the residents to use the space however they want. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Jess. Again, like every presentation, we've got some wonderful comments popping up. State Representative Walker is also a filmmaker, we are finding too. Does anyone have any questions, reactions for Jess?
Hi, this is Jared from Bird. I have a reaction.
Mm-hmm. Go for it.
So I like how all of the spaces are visible from the road. That definitely helps allow the people on the street to police the open space. So everybody's able to see what everybody else is doing, and it really helps keep just that community policing, so that a kid can't come in and stay out of sight from their parents or the rest of the community. It's really good to see that.
Thank you.
One question I would have would be, and maybe it would, I don't know, I guess I was thinking about the traffic on Jackson Street, and it does tend to go relatively higher speed than it should, and whether or not this type of installation would help to maybe slow down the cars, in a way, or what, thinking about what kind of safety measures we might need to put in place on the sidewalk and in the street to kind of help with just if we're going to have a larger gathering of folks there. I don't know if you thought about some of the safety pieces.
It's mostly pedestrians that would come to it. I was thinking about moving the sidewalk off of the street a little bit. It's just a challenge because of the slope that is on the site, but it would be a really good idea to kind of bring it off of the street a little bit to, get away from the cars.
Great. Anybody else with any questions, comments? Folks are loving the view and the design. So thank you so much, Jess.
Thank you, guys.
All right, thanks, Jess. And up next we have Zhusheng Kai.
Hello everyone, I'm Kai and I'm a senior landscape architecture student. This is my presentation. The first thing I want to introduce is the site analysis of the I95. So I'm doing hydrology and topography and drainage site analysis. I found out that the drainage of this area is not very well. So I'm mainly focused on the drainage on this site analysis. And we can tell that there's a slope from the north to the south. So it makes like the water flow from the top to the bottom. So the drainage condition is really bad under the Adams Street Court. The next one is the existing condition. We can tell that there are a lot of vegetations, but some of them are invasive vegetations. On this picture, we can tell that the vegetations on the fences are invasive plants, and also on this picture, we can tell that invasive plants on the trees. And this is an overall existing plan I made, and and this is I forgot which bridge, but we can tell that there are a lot of colors on the bridge, and this would be one of my theme. This is my concept and ideas. My keywords are loud and quiet, and my proposal creates a space where you can experience quiet in a noisy neighborhood, and I also use color to block loud and quiet feelings from each other. This diagram, I want to show the change of circulations from the sites I pick. So the sites I pick is 10th Street and 7th Street and Adams Street Court. On this diagram, it shows like the people from the Adams Street Court, they are totally, the quiet and loud feelings are totally separated. And on the 7th bridge, it kind of like you can block loud noises from the I95 highway from the bridge. And on this one, it's like a continuous from the loud to quiet because there's a park here, so it's very quiet, but other parts of the community is loud. So I want to lead people from the loud to quiet. And I also use color in all those like diagrams to show the change of circulations and quiet to loud. Those are the diagrams I made for the sites I picked. This one is for the 7th Street and this one is for 10th Street. On 10th Street, I mainly focus on the lighting, and the 7th Street is the vegetation and the barriers like blocks all the noises away. And on the Adams Street Court, I want to use color to separate all the quiet and loud feelings from each other. Like for relaxing place, I use like not very bright color, and on the basketball court, I use very bright color on the ground. And this is a redesign of the site. This is a section of the 7th Street, and this is the photo rendering I made for the site. And those are all the vegetations. And the clear part is the barrier for highways that blocks all the noises away, and you can also close it for some events. And this is a photo rendering for the 10th Street. I was thinking to close the street to have like when we have some public events, people can like hang around on the bridge. And also I use a lot of lightings so that can light up the street. And this is a section of Adams Street Court. I use a lot of colors. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but I will have a like enlargement section on the next several slides. And this is a photo rendering I made for the 10th Street. And I picked one focused site is Adam Street Court. Those are the diagrams I made for the court, like all those colors is the colors I want to use for the court. And I use Photoshop to like put some colors on this one to make a colorful diagram. And this is all the elements I want to have in the Adam Street Court. Is like colorful benches and planting beds. And this is a place in China, and they have a like rainbow color pathway. So I want to use these elements into the site. This is some like photo renderings and also some diagrams I made for the site. This is like all the lightings I want to add in at this area, because I noticed that if even in the daytime, there's still not a lot of like when the weather is not so good, the lighting is still a big problem, and it also can add a lot of colors that can enhance my theme, which is using colors to separate loud and quiet. And this is the final plan I come up with this area. This is an enlargement plan I made. So this part is actually, it was a parking lot at right now, and I want to use it as a relaxing place. So I use like a lot of colors. Those colors are not very bright because it's for quiet and relaxing. Those colors are very bright, and because it's for the basketball court. And I have a small sculpture and planting beds on the center of the relaxing part. You can tell on this one, it's a section from this direction. Can you guys tell it? Like here. And from this direction, and this W sculpture, I also found it from the Rodney Court. Rodney Square? Yeah, Rodney Square. So I want to keep the city, they should have a same style. So that's why I keep this one. And this is a section from the other direction, from the basketball court here. And this is a photo rendering I made for the when it's in the night, and I add a lot of lightings. And this is one of the details I made. This one is a final plan for the project. So I add another like model rendering. You can tell that from the up, so you can tell how it look like from the upper part, but not a plan. And another details I made for the benches, because I also want to make colorful benches that can put on the site. Yeah, that's all I have. Thank you. And do you have any questions?
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
There was a lot of people. Yeah, go for it, Kevin.
So I was waiting for somebody to put some lights in the darn place. So I appreciate your help with the lights. I think there's a proposal to light the bridge up at Beach, the railroad tracks, to put some lights underneath of it. Yeah. But with all the lights that you have and the combinations with LED lights and running those lights, I think this might have been perpendicular with the freeway or along the freeway underneath of it. I think it really gives you an opportunity I think Representative Dorsey commented on it about really changing how that whole place looks. And lights change with the season, you know what I mean, and so forth. But lighting under that bridge, I think, really makes it look 100% different than it does right now. Because now it's just a bright street light, a halogen light that just lights that place up that doesn't really look that well. But with some colored lights and things like that, underneath and along the side as well, I think it really changes what it looks like. Good job.
Yes. Any other comments, questions?
Sarah, I would just like to say, is Kevin Malloy still on the line?
Yes.
I think me and Kevin were waiting for this young lady to present. She kind of gave us a visual of her thought process when we were on tour. And one of the things that was very unique was the lighting. And also, I think at that time she was saying something about putting reflectors or mirrors underneath of the overpass to kind of reflect some of the lighting as well. So I think we kind of were waiting for the final project to be able to see what she was going to put together. So hopefully I'm not biased on that, but we were walking with you and you were kind of showing us your vision while we were down underneath the bridge. So I'm glad to see the final project, and the lighting and the trees and the rendering that you use is amazing. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Kevin, you're muted. I can unmute you, Kevin. Kevin, there you go.
Okay, great. Well, I don't know if anyone else, I had to be here, and it's such great timing because I'm actually at this bridge that I videotaped before, but look at, is it on the right direction?
Yeah.
So this is just a pretty simple restoration of a bridge where I live near here in Puerto Rico. So you can see the three colors, and that's the colors of Louisa. There's the Puerto Rican American flag, the Puerto Rican flag, and the Louisa flag. And this can transform this bridge. It was just like a normal ugly bridge, and it's such a great, this last presentation is such a great reflection of what was done here. It's creating a lot of energy with lighting and color, and it's not that expensive. So this project here, I don't know what it would cost with the flags and painting the colors, but it was quite a significant, it just has such a high impact. And I just am so proud of the University of Delaware students, and so thankful that I'm able to be here at this meeting. It's been such inspiration, and hopefully some of what has been done today is going to be able to put into place. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, Kevin, and please be careful crossing that highway. I know we can't hear you now, but be careful. Okay, thank you. And any other feedback, questions? I think we have one more presentation. Any other questions?
All right. There was one comment that I just had to share with Kai if she didn't see it, but was love the out of the boxy designs, which I thought was a good adjective. So that's fun. Thank you. Okay, up next and last, we have Connor Armstrong, who will be presenting his vision for the 7th Street Bridge.
Hello, everybody. 1 second, let me just share my screen with you guys. Sorry, 1 second. Okay. All right, can you guys see that okay? All right, cool. So my name is Connor Armstrong. I am a senior in landscape architecture major here at UD. To start off with my design, this is my first step in designing in Wilmington is mapping my theme of a natural and a cultural space. And this mind map over on the left-hand side, I wanted to map my natural spaces by including parks and green spaces, as well as river and water access. And you can see those maps on the right-hand side. There's bottom two there. And then the cultural spaces, I decided to study through the history of different neighborhoods and districts, which is that top map up there. So to start off with my site analysis, I focused on two different topics. One of them was the utilities of the site, and then another one was the circulation and right-of-way of the site. Utilities on the right side diagram here, I basically studied the biohydrant locations, storm drain locations, electrical line, and some stoplights. And on the circulation and right-of-way, I wanted to study a number of things, including the direction of one-way and two-way streets, and then how parking, as you can see by the red dots on that left side diagram, how parking kind of affects circulation throughout the site. So for my, I studied a couple existing condition sites. One of them was the 3rd Street underpass, and you can see in these existing photos down here, one of them includes the corner of the 3rd Street and Jackson Street looking at the underpass. And then the other one looks at the existing basketball courts, which was a big focal point in that site. So looking at the site plan up top here, I wanted to, the main point of this plan is to highlight some design opportunities throughout the site. And you can see this in section of how the space is used through the basketball court and then the open space surrounding it. The other site that I wanted to look at was the 7th Street Bridge. And this is on the location plan, it's kind of smack in the middle of this whole corridor. And I wanted to incorporate, same thing was to me studying how and where, according to these star areas, where these design opportunities are on the 7th Street Bridge. Something I really gained from this was that existing United Neighbors mural, which I decided to move through in my design of the 7th Street Bridge. You'll see that in just a few slides here. My theme behind this whole project is natural versus cultural spaces. A natural space to me is interaction with nature. It's more a calming space, and then it has there's typically less people in smaller spaces versus a cultural space is more designed through art, and it's open up for bigger gathering spaces for more people. I included both of these diagrams here to kind of show what these two like how I kind of placed these natural and cultural spaces. The diagram to the left kind of just shows natural and cultural spaces through different wavelengths. And then the one to the right, I kind of placed natural and cultural space through what's existing there already. So an example is through a natural space. So an example is in this green area. I put that there because there's an existing park a couple blocks away. So that was my mindset through that. This is an inspiration board that I have for my natural and cultural spaces. This kind of highlights the spaces that are designed today throughout the eastern United States. And again, natural spaces is through vegetation, interaction with vegetation, and some of the materials I wanted to use was this. See on the bottom left here, the gabion cage filled with different stones. And then for the cultural spaces, again, it's an interaction with art and community. And you can see a wall mural in Wilmington. That is an example of that. And then using materials for cultural spaces like this metal structure on the bottom right-hand corner there to bring people together as a big cultural space. And then kind of in the middle, just what these two spaces can be together. So again, I wanted to focus on the 7th Street Bridge for my design. This diagram is very simple. It just shows that some planting opportunities highlighted in blue for natural spaces, and then some gathering opportunities with highlighted in red through different cultural spaces. Moving on to my actual proposed design of the site, as you can see there, this is going to be a mix of natural and cultural spaces. Natural spaces are going to be these colorful planting beds. They're going to be raised planting beds through gabion stones as the bottom of it. And I got a lot of inspiration from this natural spaces, from these planting beds, from the existing United Neighbors mural. You can see the mural is very colorful, so I wanted to incorporate that into these different planting species. So you can see on the right-hand side, these are going to be different So each of these little sections are going to be different planting color as well as planting species. So then once you come into that, you'll come into this big cultural space, which is going to have gabion seating around each of these around this area, and then a big mural, which is going to best represent this mural on the left-hand side here, which is going to be, it's made out of perforated metal cladding, where there'll be lights that are going to be put in there, and then it'll be a very exciting gathering space for people during the day and especially during the night. And then last thing I want to talk about here is I wanted to increase safety of the site, so I wanted to include these safety bollards on the side here, just to limit people from driving onto the site. And a couple sections of what this might look like. This is a very simple section. It just highlights what the bridge looks like from a little bit farther back with that wall, and then comparing that to what my design is without that wall. And you'll see in here, you'll see that the bollards here, and then you'll see the plantings, the raised planting beds, and then the big W mural to represent Wilmington. And then you will see the seating area behind it, and then again the natural planters here. And then this next section here is just highlighting what this planter is a little bit more into detail. And then these rocks here, I wanted to incorporate lights into them, so that it's a very, very cool space to be at night. And then this is just a small detail of what this a safety bollard would possibly look like in my eyes. It would be made out of steel and then be wrapped in perforated metal to go with that cultural feel of the mural. And then it can it's about 5 feet tall, so just a little bit of information about what these could look like. And then finally, my perspective of the site, you can see that there's the planting beds here, various planting beds of gabion, and then you'll see this existing mural, or sorry, the existing mural here, and then the my proposed mural, and then the seating area. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Any questions?
Great. Thank you. And we've had a couple comments. Anyone have something they'd like to share or questions for Connor?
Sarah,
Yes.
I thought all of the presentations were fabulous. And as Director Kelly stated, the use of light and color is just amazing, because that's the one thing we need on the west side to bring things together. And to quote our community activist / mother, Karen Turner, when she was talking about when you bring all these things together, it's like welcoming people back home. And when you leave the district and you come back and it's daylight and you come back and it's night and you see these renderings, it just lets you know the possibilities that exist in our community. Job well done to every single University of Delaware student. We've been talking about a vision of a bridge to connect the community that has been disconnected for so long. And you can see the vision, and I am just more than impressed. We can take a little bit from each student and create something wonderful on the west side. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, State Representative. Thank you for all of your comments and for participating at every level. Does anyone have any other questions for Connor also? And then we can also maybe take a few comments about all the presentations collectively. Anybody have a question or comment for Connor? For a couple presentations, I liked the reference to the W, which is an artistic element that the city has already incorporated and would be a very neat concept to kind of build from. All right, well, if there are no other comments for Connor, then yes, I think State Representative Dorsey Walker mentioned kind of the great work by all of the students. I don't know if Anna, if there were any other kind of reflections that students, if there are any questions that the students have for this group still, or if anyone wanted to share their feedback for all of the presentations. I don't know if there's a couple.
Sarah, could I make a comment?
Yep, this is Paul Calistro. Paul.
First of all, I want to thank the University of Delaware. I'm sometimes hard on the university, I'm being totally transparent. Your continued commitment, especially from your department to the city, whether and to the West Side on projects, is really uplifting. Your students are amazing, and I greatly appreciate your leadership. Far too often, I feel like we're disconnected from our university, and you are a great connector back to the community. So I want to thank you and your students for your time, effort, and talent.
Thanks, Paul. So I have a question for, I have a couple questions, but I don't want to hog the time. I also want to be respectful of everyone's time. But we do have some great, elected officials on this call. We have Director Kelly. We have some folks that represent, not to call out individuals, but work in transportation and Wilmapco. Are there elements of these designs from the audience that folks feel like could be implemented? Or are there some, are there any aha moments for folks that you're going to take away and, potentially champion in future conversations? So I don't know if, yes, Kevin?
I would say, I think the one that's apparent is closing 7th Street and making a pedestrian bridge. And I think that concept can be done in light of the viaduct project. I think the viaduct project is going to delay the Adam Street courts and things like that. But I was really impressed with that 7th Street kind of taking it to another level and just closing it off and making it for pedestrians. I think that's something really to look at. I think they're all fantastic proposals. We just got to figure them all out. But for me, that what jumps right out to me is closing 7th Street and making it a pedestrian kind of walkway place.
Thank you for sharing that, and that's great to hear. Does anyone else have? Oh, Bud, Councilman Friel.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to commend all the students on a job well done. I'm not totally surprised. I'm a big fan of the University of Delaware and have many ties there. So they did a great job. I think the mixture of colors and plantings and lights, I think these are all doable things. But Kevin kind of stole my thunder. I just think the one we can knock off quickly and get things moving on is the closure of 7th Street, a permanent closure, and making that a pedestrian, bike-friendly crossover from one side of the city to the others. But I want to just commend all the students for a job well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that. I believe we also got a comment from Dave Gula, who works for Wilmapco, and he mentioned lighting at all I-95 bridges and underpasses as an immediate need. And then I think Jared from DART, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yeah, it's really good to hear that the city's open to closing bridges for pedestrian only. To take it a step further, I also really liked someone who presented closing down 3rd Street, because that helps bridge 2 land uses on 2 different sides of 95. So people who are living on the west side now have a much better access to what will be a new grocery store and Rite Aid on the other side of 95.
Thank you for sharing. And I see Senator Lockman also has a hand raised. Yes?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear the takeaways of my colleagues for sure. Definitely the lighting seems important. And the only thing I haven't heard said, I think, was I noticed a lot of the projects incorporated some really beautiful green elements, and that seems so doable. And I think there's some spaces where we've just kind of accepted a lack of that natural element. And I think I'm thinking of the courts, for example, and I think having us be more mindful of bringing that green into the space really will enliven it for the people who use it. So I hope that that's something we can pretty easily advocate for in any projects.
Thank you. And others, please feel free to keep making comments. I'm saving these comments for future reading and for the students. A quick final question I have for the students. Again, thank you for your presentations. Based on this whole process this semester, do you all have any kind of reflections or something that you've learned through this process that you think, you know, we should all hear, or just, yeah, like other aha moments that you've had about the city and how 95 has impacted these spaces. Do you have any of the students have a final thought about that? I'm putting you on the spot. I could call out names, but I won't do it. No,
Do it. Come on.
Oh, I'll be that teacher that waits for an awkward silence for a minute, you know?
Okay.
So this is an area that a lot of folks have driven by, but never been to. Is this the first time any of the students have been to this area of the city?
So Paul, I think there was an introduction piece where we talked a little bit about their involvement over time, and they did come and visit with residents, and they met with us a few times. But I think I saw that Jess maybe was going to speak. Jess?
First, to start off, I live in North Wilmington near Claymont, so I've been here multiple times, but usually just driving through, especially on the cutoff from 95, like where Jackson Street is and where the Adams Street Court is. But one thing I really learned was kind of getting our ideas across to the community, because they're so insightful, and it's your guys' community, so it's really great to hear what you guys have to say and your opinions. And I've learned to like make sure my graphics are showing you what I want to show you in the best way possible, where like you don't have to ask about fine-tuning things and making sure that it's like presentable and very clear.
Thank you, Jess. Thank you for jumping in there. And Paul, I heard your question, and Jess kind of referenced it too. I think some of the students, many of you are not from the city of Wilmington, so this may have been some, exposure to parts that you had not experienced before, or maybe many of you had. But does anybody else have any last reflections for us before we talk about next steps? Because I want to make sure we respect folks' time. But any other last thoughts from the students?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Baikon calling from DelDOT's planning office. So earlier there was a question about whether or not some of these projects may fall into like implementation. So within our transportation alternatives program, there's stormwater management or water quality runoff. So that's one of the eligible categories that could apply within at least, the planning TAP program. So I just want to let, folks know that some of the recommendations could become like reality type projects. So, the stormwater management at least gets it from the TAP program. But I'd say all in all, like I was zooming in and zooming out, I was driving. So I caught like half of it, but the parts that I did, it was really informative. So I do thank everyone.
Well, Mike, we appreciate you being on the call, and that's very exciting to hear about programs through DelDOT. Makes me think we need to identify some funding sources, and any of you students that were seniors, if maybe we could think of some projects we could get you to help us with as far as implementing these ideas. So let's stay in touch for sure. So if other folks have comments, please add them in the chat. And I think we want to wrap things up. So Anne, I don't know if you have any closing thoughts, and if we want to talk about next steps for folks if they're interested.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone so much for spending this time with us this afternoon. I want to give a big round of applause to the students and to the community and everyone who's been involved. It's just been a really exciting and hopeful project during this kind of stressful, weird time, right? So we're all a little like unsure what's going to happen. So to be thinking about positive changes for the future is great. And the students, I'm just so proud of all of you. And I look forward to hearing what the next steps are. As I mentioned, I teach the Urban Design Studio. It's every year. I'm going to be teaching it again in the fall. So if people are interested in staying connected and hearing more about these type of ideas, please let me know. I love to get feedback from the community and from our state and local representatives. So thanks again.
Yep, and I just want to add before folks, I know folks are jumping off. Again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to support the students and these efforts. The United Neighbors event that occurred with so many of your support wouldn't have happened without many of you last fall. We are, pushing forward with some sort of event this fall. I know COVID will affect those plans slightly, but we do have an email, unitedneighbors@westsidegrows.org if folks are not connected to that and would like to be. And we are looking for some, maybe Anna and I are talking about potential interns this summer that could look at pieces of these projects to push towards implementation, working with the city and the state and other entities. So definitely stay tuned. We hope this is just the spark, part of the spark that ignites, some more long-term changes. So again, thank you, everybody. Oh, and yes, people are asking about the recordings and the presentation. So Anna and I will connect. I have the recording and we will have the presentations. We will look to share them by email, and maybe even we could share them through social media, depending on how, what that looks like. So yeah, thank you all. Any other last questions, everybody? All right. Thank you all again. And great job, students. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks so much for joining.
Great work. Loved it.
Thanks, Matt.
Hey, Matt. Yeah, it was
Appreciate
so
your
good.
support.
So inspirational. Love
Thank
it.
you.
All right. You guys have a good one.
You too. Thanks.
Anna, I think there's a way to save these comments. So
I saved them a couple times, like in the middle, just so I could. But if you go down to like the bottom of the chat where it says everyone, and then you just click save chat, I think that.
Thanks, Adele. Thanks, Thomas.
Thanks, Adele.
Thank you, Paul and James and Garrison.
Thank you. It was such a great turnout, Sarah. I'm so impressed.
Yo, 56 people.
That's amazing. So very exciting for the students. Brandon's still on here. Thanks, Brandon. I don't know if anyone else is.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.
Bye, Thomas. We can't hear you, but thank you.
Bye, Sarah.
Bye. Nice to see you. And Kevin, the infamous Kevin, I loved your video. I don't know if you're still there, but I thought it was great to show the flags. So thank you. Oh, Anna, yes.
So hopefully we hear some good things about that little baby grant, and I think that was good. Really good feedback for the students. So
yeah, I guess it really did. Their presentations changed quite a bit from when we first saw them, and I think that was good. They're definitely